Hey everybody, want to do a quick little bit of HR math for you. Let's see if we can make this work. HR math. So I'm basically writing in Word with my little pen and ink here, and just to help you. So, sometimes the visuals work better. That's what I'm trying to spit out here. Okay, particularly when you're doing assignment 2, there are some just things to remember tying back to chapter 2. So I just want to make sure that you're fully aware of these things. A full-time equivalent is known as an FTE in HR world. That is 2,080 hours. You can have one person make an FTE, that would be a regular full-time employee. You could have 5 people make an FTE, basically 5 people whose hours add up to any combination of 2,080. It doesn't matter. But when you're calculating overhead and the number, you have 2 numbers when you're talking about employees. You've got the number of bodies, or head count. That's the actual head count of employees. That's the individual number of people who are on your payroll. And then FTEs comes out to the hours that they work. And for that, let's go. I'm trying to figure out how it's going. Let me do a new page. Sorry, I'm working on it here. Okay. That works. So the number of FTEs forgive me, I'm trying to use this technology and it sometimes doesn't. Okay. So let's say that your employer has 13,000 hours a year. There we go. You have 13,000 hours a year as the total number of hours that all of your employees work. So what you want to know, if you want to know how many FTEs that is, you would take, let me go back to my pen, okay. You would have the 13,000 divided by 2,080. So I have my trusty little calculator here, 2080. That would be the equivalent of 6.25 FTEs. Now, if you're a small business, you may have 15 people that work that. You may have 15 part-time people, or 1 full-time person and 12 part-time people. It doesn't matter the number of bodies you have, it's the FTEs. And when you're considering, how's the best way to describe this? When you're considering financial information, you generally want FTEs, because if you're doing cost per hour, or you're trying to figure out the relative expenses, like a return on investment for a certain program or that type of thing, you're going to use FTEs. For most labor laws, you're going to use the number of bodies, because number of bodies or your head count. Labor laws tend to prefer more about the number of people that you have in the world or in your organization versus the amount of FTEs they work out to. But again, that depends on the labor law. There are some that go back to the FTE calculation, and then you have to use that. Let's see. I'm going to erase this right here. Chapter 2, while we're doing a little bit of HR math here, Chapter 2 talks about turnover, which I like to abbreviate turnover. So it's the number who left the org divided by the average number of people employed. Very basic math here. You can figure turnover in a multitude of ways. You can do turnover for the whole organization. You can do turnover by department. You can do turnover by manager if you want to. You can also cut it even further and do by time periods. All you need to make sure is that your time periods match. So if you have turnover for the month of January, you need the number of people who left in January divided by the starting number, by the average of the starting number in January and the ending number on January 31st. For example, let's say, and I lost my little pen again here. Not sure what that is. Don't we love doing videos? Okay, so there's my pen. Let's say I had 10 people turnover. 10 people turnover. I started with, at the beginning of the month, I had 150. At the end of the month, I had 146. Because I hired some people, you know, whatever. So the calculation would be 10 divided by 150 plus 146 divided by 2. Now remember your parentheses and your basic math equations here. So that works out to be 10 divided by 147 divided by 2, 148. The average of, and I should have been able to do that by hand, sorry, it's been a long day. 150 divided, the average of 150 and 146 is 148. So your turnover rate, remember rates from like your finance classes and that type of thing, they come back to haunt you again and again and again. Your turnover rate is 6.75%, which is a pretty high turnover rate for, it would be high for a month. If for the year your turnover rate was 6%, then you're doing pretty well. So you need to make sure that you know the context that you're working your numbers through. I'm kind of going a little bit out of the side here to look. Your book talks about doing the costings and that type of things. You need to understand your numbers, and you need to understand when HR talks about an FTE, when HR talks about, you know, turnover percentages, what that matters. So I want to do just one little quick review so you see an equivalent here. Okay, 8 hours in a day. Well, maybe. 8 hours in a day per day. 5 days per week. And then there's 52 weeks per year, which gives you 8 times 5 equals 40 hours a week. So that's a regular FTE times 52 weeks in a year equals 2,080 hours. That's where my 2080 comes from. Just want to make sure you've got it. And in activity 2, it talks about, it goes back and forth between two numbers. And I'm probably not going to have these. Oh, I do have them. It goes back and forth between using the numbers 67.375 days. And I'm going back here. And this is your ONO activity that I'm talking about, activity 2. So 67.375 days. I got crazy there. 3 weeks. 65.375 days equals 67.375 divided by 28, or I'm sorry, 67.375 times 8 gives you 539 hours. Conceptually speaking, it's generally harder to think of time in 539 hours. We can't really wrap our heads around it. But 67.375 days, then we know, oh, in a 5-day work week, that's 13 weeks. 13 times 5 is 68 hours or 68 days. So you're losing right at 5 work weeks in sick time here. So don't let those things confuse you when you're going back and forth. And if you're trying to take an hourly rate and figure out how much somebody's going to cost per year, I'll do one more number. I'm getting all sorts of happy math here. So if somebody makes $10 per hour and they are a full-time employee with no overtime, it would be 10 times 2080, which equals $20,800 a year. If they work $10 per hour and they have 2 overtime hours per week, then your number changes a bit. It's 10 times 2080 plus 15, because overtime is paid at time and a half unless otherwise specified by union contract, times 2 hours per week times 52 weeks a year. So that's $2,800 plus 15 times 2 times 52 plus $1,560, which equals $22,360 a year. And that means that, and then that employee works a total of 15 times 2 times, 2 times 52 is 104 plus 2080, 104 plus 2080. So total hours is 2184, and they would make $22,360. I hope this helps kind of bring some of your HR math into focus. If you've got any questions, please let me know. And again, deep thoughts. Hopefully it helps. Have a great one.